Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Berry Connected podcast. And today we're being joined by Rick Tremblay. I'm so excited.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. I actually had him recommended to me through a very good friend. And Rick is a patient, but he also speaks on his journey. And so fortunate today to be joined by Rick and to hear his incredible story. The good thing is he's going to be talking about something that I find very, very interesting. He's going to be talking about your body, your business, applying business principles and models to bariatric weight loss. And basically, he's using his background as a human resources in the management system to be able to show how that kind of can convey over to weight loss and weight loss methods. And in that, Rick, I'm going to just kind of switch the screen over to you here and allow you to kind of talk a little bit more about your journey of where you started and when that was, how much weight loss you've had, because I feel like I want you to share that.
Sure.
So
let me share my screen so I can go through the PowerPoint with everyone. Give me a moment here.
Sure, absolutely. Say hi if you're joining us too. I want to say if you're joining us on Facebook, say hello. If you're joining us on on Zoom, say hello. We have a chat feature for that. Let us know where you're coming in from, like state-wise, if you've had surgery, if you're planning to have surgery, if you're pre or post-op. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And while Rick's it looks like he's got it pulled up. So I'm going to actually mute myself while I'm getting switched over to our Facebook and make sure that's going smooth.
Thanks, Brenda, for inviting me and having me join everyone. Boy, you could tell it's the end of the day, right? When we start losing our speaking. Hi, my name is Rick Tremblay. I'm an HR professional for over 20 years. I've worked in all sorts of industries, education, nonprofit, for-profit, and I also do executive employee and personal coaching. For those of you that have either gone through the pre-op or going through the pre-op process or moving through the post-op process, we go through so much education, learning, getting new information thrown at us. We're learning new skills on how to do things differently. And it's nothing that's overnight. It's an ongoing process, regardless if you're in pre-op or post-op. So we go through all these ups and downs, challenges, insights, body morphing, changes in hormones, and it's just so much. Sometimes it's hard to keep track and keep all of that information organized. So what if we can take what we know and be able to apply it to some of this process just to help us understand it a little more effectively? So the one thing I'm going to ask you to do is to help keep it a little more entertaining. I have some surveys through this. So I'm going to ask everyone, you can use your phone for those of you that are seeing this live. You can take a picture of the QR code. It's going to direct you. Below here, of course, is the code number to enter in that will allow you to answer part of the survey questions. And just keep it open because I'm going to be popping surveys in and out throughout this presentation. So a little bit about my story. So I started the process about 4 years ago. And to be perfectly honest, it wasn't my first time trying this. This was probably my third attempt being successful. And think of the things, or at least the specific things that I struggled with. No energy, always hungry, arthritis, high blood pressure, sleep apnea. I remember walking up a flight of steps and being just exhausted, where I'm like heavy breathing and panting, to the point where sometimes I'd even have to stop halfway, just one flight of steps, just to catch my breath. It's really just cumbersome, I think, for myself to be overweight at that time. And I didn't realize it, I think, till now, but I really realized an enormous part of my life that I was really missing. So much opportunity to enjoy life instead of life controlling me, allowing me to control life a little bit. So I think that became really important. And the real reason why I wanted to go through this process is because I wanted to live past 50. I turned 50 this year, yay! But I really wanted to experience life. I wanted to be able to do things that I just physically couldn't do, from something simple like boarding an airplane, right? Sitting at a restaurant in a booth and being able to fit comfortably, not always asking for a table because you can't fit into a booth, hiking, zip lining, canoeing, all these things that, because I was so large, really prevented me from doing safely and just having a fun life. So this brings me to my first survey question. What's one thing that motivated you to consider the bariatric process? Why is it this? Sorry, now I'm having technical difficulties. So if you can log in to Slido. And these answers are supposed to pop up here, and I'm not seeing them. For those of you that are not seeing this visually, but hearing it, you can go to slido.com, SLIDO, and it's going to ask you for a code, and you're going to enter 8515267. I love these to get healthy, health issues, and unable to do activities, being motivated to get more energy, to be healthy and comfortable, your children. That's so awesome. One of the things that I do at work when I coach employees and they just like work so many hours and they're not giving them that work-life balance, I like to tell them, look, your employer is not going to remember you keep staying 2-3 hours 10 years from now. Your children are going to remember that. So you want to make sure you have that work-life balance for yourself. High blood pressure, more energy. All of these are great responses and really contributing factors as to why we want to be healthy and lose weight. So we all go through pre-op challenges. Now, my pre-op challenges were learning nutrition, because I was not eating right, clearly, right at 409 pounds. Quitting smoking, big one. It affects your health, weight gain, fitness levels, being able to do fitness. To my knowledge, most programs won't even let you succeed unless you can successfully quit smoking. Exercise, just could not do it. I just explained the struggles I had just climbing up a flight of stairs. One of my barriers was ADHD. So for those of you that have ADHD, you can understand how much of a struggle that is to just remembering things, tracking things, documenting things, and so that can be challenging. So hopefully some of these business models and principles that I'll be sharing will be very helpful. Sweet tooth. Oh my God, I'd tackle somebody if you had a Snickers bar waving in front of me. That's probably the only way that you would have got me running a block or two. And then insurances. I think a lot of us forget about the insurances. I was supposed to have my surgery after 6 months, and it took me a year to get my insurance provider to approve it. And the reason why, it was work related, but the reason why was because I missed one nutrition appointment. One appointment with my nutritionist, the insurance company made me repeat the whole program all over again. But you know what? At that point, I was like, look, I just did this for 6 months. There is no way I'm stopping now. And as I went through the program, you really do start feeling more positive about yourself because you're beginning to feel and see a difference. It may not be at the level of actually going to post-op, but it is at a level that's healthy. and gets you on the right track for learning these new processes on how to diet and maintain nutrition and get exercise and everything that you need to do to successfully complete this.
Rick, you said that,
yeah.
and it's like about the insurance piece. I mean, to me, that is a huge thing. And before I worked with ProCare Health, I worked at a bariatric surgery program, and I helped with the insurance part. And, for some people it goes through really smoothly, and other people, there's all these humps and bumps in the road. But if you can just stay consistent, and I always feel like if something's meant to happen, it will. It's like having a lot of trust and faith in the process, and maybe maybe as frustrating as it was, maybe that helped you in some way. Who knows? I'm sure it was upsetting. It would have been easy to give in.
Yeah, it would have been easy to give in. And like I said before, too, it was my third attempt kind of going through the process. But I really think you have to be in the right mindset to do this successfully. And I think you're absolutely right, Brenda. Just having been through the pre-op process for a year, I think if anything, just fortified the information with me. It just made it just strengthened my ability to succeed once I hit post-op. Now, did it prepare me for post-op? I don't think anything truly prepares you 100% for post-op and what happens after, because things happen to me after that I just did not know about, was never told about. One of the things, just come to think about it, with post-op, there were a couple things that surprised me, and one was my taste buds changed. I could not even consume any flavor that was orange for a good year and a half. I mean, it made me nauseous. It tasted bitter to me. It just didn't taste the same, and which was disappointing at the time because orange was my absolute favorite flavor. So I kind of feel like I got cheated a little bit. And then on the positive side, my sweet tooth was completely gone for about 2 years. I didn't crave it. I didn't want it. I didn't desire it. I would look at something sweet, just walk away, versus, like I said earlier, I'd tackle somebody down and get that piece of chocolate. So there were some pros, cons, some differences, some adjustments. And I think that's what's important to know too, because this journey is never going to be the same for everybody. There's always going to be some differences. Some of it's trial by error, especially with food. For a couple of years, I couldn't eat eggs at all. It just wouldn't stay down. So that was challenging. As far as the two procedures, I had gastric bypass versus the sleeve. And I did that for two reasons. One was I had the understanding that you would lose the more weight from going on gastric bypass, but that wasn't the selling point to me. What was the selling point was when the surgeon had a discussion with me about it and had shared that, well, here's what we can do. You're a candidate for both, but if you get the bypass, that's something that I can actually reverse if there's some medical necessity for that down the road. So I felt like there's a little security for me, just physiologically, if something happens, versus the sleeve. Once they cut some of that it's gone, it's taken out of your body. So those were the things that did it. And the other one was I really wanted robotic surgery done, just because of the research I did on it. I learned, or the material that I've read, it was all consistent that the recovery time from robotic surgery is much quicker than non-robotic surgery. And at the hospital that I went to, they only did the robotic surgery for the gastric bypass, not the sleeve. So to me, I initially walked in thinking I was going to get the bypass, and then the thing from the surgeon and the robotic just kind of reinforced that for me. So those are my driving forces that made me decide to do that. And then I also decided I'm going to do this right. If I'm going to do this right, I'm going to get a physical trainer and to work with me on exercising, because I didn't know how to exercise. I mean, yeah, in theory, you know what to do, but for anyone that hasn't walked into a gym, really kind of learning the equipment and how to correctly use them, or, so it's ergonomically correct and you're not going to injure yourself, was all important to me. So I did make some initial investments, and those, and I absolutely loved working out with a trainer. I ended up working out with him 5 days a week. So I really pushed myself. Jumping from 409 pounds down to 195, 190 pounds, that to me, that's incredible. I look at my pictures and I don't even recognize myself anymore. And when we look at business, it kind of makes sense, because when we look at productivity and performance, we're going to focus on 4 domains. We're going to focus on our physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual components. This all interrelates with the bariatric process. Physical, exercise, nutrition, stretching, sleep, they're all so important. Let's focus on sleep too, because I think this is sometimes something that gets overlooked. Harvard Medicine did a study about 6-7 years ago that focused on sleep, and they had shared that we as humans should get anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of sleep a day. Anything less, anything more, can actually induce sickness, illness, disease, and let's face it, for like any of us that have either slept too much or not slept enough, we know we're not as productive, right? Because that's how injuries happen. That's how accidents happen. That's how we forget things. We're very lethargic, so we're not productive at our best, and as such, we don't perform well. Emotional wellness, so important, especially now with going into the COVID endemic. We have all, let's just be honest here. I am going to be a very genuine and concrete person. It's been hell for the last 2-3 years, I think, for a lot of us. Just not being able to have that human interaction like we used to in a safe way, always masking up, doing a lot of things virtually versus in person. Financial stress now more than anything, right? With inflation. So all these things affect us, and stress above all is going to affect us the most, I think, when it comes to weight gain, not eating right, not doing things. Because at least for me, I was a stress eater. When I was stressed out, I would go to food for comfort. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen with everyone, but it is a component of overeating that we should be mindful about. Certainly our feelings, we need to be mindful of our feelings. Resilience, basically what I'm saying here is how quickly we come back from those negative and stressful situations. How quickly we bounce back and not get stuck in that, I don't want to say depression, but get stuck in that negative mood. And then spiritual is, I skipped intellectual. Intellectual, we basically learn by 3 different components: tactile, hands-on approach, through auditory, just listening, sometimes through webinar, just listening to somebody speak, visualization, right? So we're going to read, watch a video, training visual aids, all of these different things help us learn. And each of us actually learn more effectively by one of these ways or the other. So by knowing how you learn more effectively can actually help you to kind of look for different ways of learning the material easier. So I just kind of want us to try to keep that in the back of our mind. And then spiritual. So important again, is what you're doing really, did it touch you? Did it reach your soul? And we'll go more into that when I talk about intrinsic and intrinsic value and how that's helpful too. So the next thing that I want us to talk about too is, if you can remember either you're currently in the pre-op process or you've been through it, but what was your biggest challenge during the pre-op process? So go ahead and enter your response in there when you get a chance. Oops. Giving up peps. Oh, yes. Oh, soda, man. That was my killer. I think I drank like a 2 liter a day. Appointments that are 1.5 hours away. It can be challenging when you find your perfect doctor. Yes, yes. Insurance requirements. Been there. Wrote the book. Great. Self-doubt. Oh. I remember just having gone through this a year, I had episodes of self-doubt and just thinking, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to succeed through this. But what really helped me with going through something like that was having a solid support structure. Working with people at the hospital, the nutritionist was huge. Surgery during COVID, that had to be a process. Yeah.
There's two more, Rick, on the comments here. Yeah. Somebody says, thinking it would be too hard. That was Deborah. And then Christine said, I didn't think I turned to food to cope after surgery. Actually, I think that was an earlier comment, but.
What was that first comment again, Brenda? I didn't catch that. Sorry.
Thinking it would be too hard, like not knowing you could do everything that it takes, after surgery, probably like the diet, the pain, the everything,
You're asked to do a lot, right?
Yeah. And really just keeping track of it. I can remember I had weight loss surgery back in 2013, so it's been 10 years, but I can remember like thinking, oh my gosh, it felt overwhelming, all the different things to remember and do. And yeah.
Yep. And the things I used to track at the beginning are not necessarily the things I use now, because we're always evolving. The process is always revolving. And I think that's there we go. So this brings me to assumption number 1. Time management is necessary to help build good habits and stay on track. Again, like Brenda alluded, like some other folks did too. And I know I have said this a few times, that so much information and so much is required of us to go through this process. It's really important for us to do everything to track it, because that tracking is so important in the initial phases. 1, because it's going to help fortify good habits for us. And 2, there's so many different things that you're tracking, from nutrition to weight to exercise to appointments, doctor's appointments. You're seeing psychologists, physical doctors. You may be sent for testing. And believe it or not, it all comes at you at once. So helping to stay organized is definitely going to help you to do this. So using the Bariatric apps to record progress, nutrition nutrition tracking, either technological and paper. Hey, I know we're given apps and technology is great to use, but if it's easier for you to track this on paper, just go ahead and do that. You do what's easier for you. I would just advise, especially initially, to have that conversation with your nutritionist, because they're going to see the bulk of your tracking, just to make sure that you're aligning with their expectations and what the expectations will be post-op. So just share with them to make sure that they're aware of it. And in my experience, they're going to work with you to accommodate you also. So if it's easier for you to record on paper and show it them, do it. But you need to do what works for you. And that's really important. With me, I'm huge with Microsoft Outlook. My calendar looks like it's boxed in different colors for this appointment and this appointment and that appointment and this meeting and that phone call. But it really helped me stay on track so I didn't miss any appointments. And then I use a lot of phone task reminders if I'm going to work out with my trainer, if I'm going to work out at the gym myself, if I'm going to meet someone to go hiking or something, or I'm going to go meet an appointment with a nutritionist, whatever. I'm going to add those tasks on my phone to get those reminders coming to me. And it's not just for meeting reminders. I remember when I initially started, one of my biggest issues was drinking enough water each day, right? So I would make myself task reminders, make sure you drink your water, make sure you drink your water. And like every hour I had that thing kind of going off just to remind me. And eventually I ended up building a habit for myself. But you traditionally need to do something for a long period of time, like 1 or 2 months every day to build that habit. So using reminders and tools and task management devices, they're really going to help you stay on track. Here's something that you can use, and you can Google any of this stuff too, but it's called the Eisenhower matrix, and it's just a different way of organizing your data. So what's urgent? What's less important? So in some ways, you're prioritizing what's important for yourself, and then you're creating that task list. So you're just visualizing it, you're organizing it, so you can take the sheet out, or you can do this on Excel, whatever. And it just is another way to help you kind of keep all that information organized in one place. And the nice thing that I like about things like these and these visual aids is I may see something, what we call an outlier. So something that stands out, something that's not working. And it may cause me to reflect back on it, because self-reflection is so important in this process, that it's going to allow me to change. Now, remember, initially in the beginning, I said we're evolving. So we are always evolving everything. So we need to constantly evaluate what's working and what's not working for us. If something's not working and you just keep doing it over and over and over and over again, it's not very effective for you, and it's not going to mean anything for you. So use your resources again, like your nutritionist and everyone, and have these discussions with them too. I do it all the time. And we really bounce ideas off each other because we all have different experiences and we all learn things. And the reason why I say your nutritionist is because the number of people that they speak with on a daily basis is specific to bariatric weight loss and support is so beneficial because they hear different things from different people. So they'll be able to provide some feedback or maybe share some insights of what other people have gone through too. When we talk about SWOT, so SWOT's an analysis or a model that's used in businesses to help identify the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we use them as an organization as a whole or in a departmental function. And we do that. Maybe there's a new process. Maybe we're trying to assess and evaluate what is working, what's not working. So this is something that we do. So what I did was rechange this whole analysis, and I call it the SWET model. And we focus on our strengths, weaknesses, and threats, but all of the opportunities are around eating and fitness. So eating and activity, because those are all contributing factors and they're all interdependent with our strengths, our weaknesses, and our threats. Now, the idea is to identify, yes, which our strengths are, but we want to identify what our weaknesses are and what our threats are, because those are the things that we want to improve or possibly eliminate altogether.
Hey, Rick.
So an example,
Oh, that's actually what I was just going to ask you. Maybe some examples, because that'll kind of help clue this in. And also, I wanted to tell you, we're about 25 minutes till. So you had asked me to.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we'll just pick on me, for example. So a strength of mine has always been self-reflection. I'm very good at reflecting on what I'm doing, mistakes I make, that's a useful tool for me because it allows me to constantly evaluate what I'm doing and learning to improve upon a process. A weakness of mine still today is water. I struggle with water. Really, really struggle with drinking the amount of water that I need. Now, the eating opportunity that I use, Mio drops. So that's an opportunity that's going to help me overcome that weakness so I can possibly learn to move it into a strength category. But it's okay if I keep it in the weakness, but as long as it's there and I can see it, it's helping me be mindful of it, which is important. And how many of us have heard that term mindfulness, right? So we know that if that is there, it's something that I can work on to improve. Now, threats are usually something that are almost unchangeable. It's something that's totally out of your control for the most part. And an example of this, and I could be oversharing here, so I apologize, but it happened this year, February through June. I've been through back-to-back surgeries. So for something unrelated from Bariatric, but what happened with that, and it's I still kind of have tears coming down my face sometimes, is that I wasn't able to exercise. I couldn't go to the gym. I had such limited restrictions. The only thing I was allowed to do was walk, and I could walk straight. I couldn't walk uphill. I couldn't walk downhill. It was a very crazy time. And so that was a threat to me because a huge part of my weight loss process is exercise and fitness. I mean, I was at the gym 5 days a week. Now I just got released where I can do limited exercise. So my lifting restrictions are up to 20 pounds, but I can at least do aerobic. So I'm back on the treadmill. But let's be honest, for any of us that have exercise, the thing about it too is that I like to think of it as an art, because if you don't continuously do it, it's certainly a skill. If you don't continuously do it or work on it, you kind of lose some of that stamina that you built up from yourself or for yourself. And in a lot of ways, I'm starting all over again. And what I mean by that is, so I was at the point where I was jogging on the treadmill every single day. And that was my aerobic exercise, right? And I would do that before I would start lifting weights. I couldn't do that for how many months now? And when I got back on the treadmill, jogging was not happening to me instantly like that. I'm literally starting all over again and kind of rebuilding that stamina. But I remember how awesome I felt from doing it. And it's one of the best things I still like to do before work. So even though it's a threat, it's a temporary threat, right? But there's also still a slight threat to it. And that is, I have to get my mojo back, I guess I'll say, or get remotivated to get back up to the level that I was at. So I know I'm going to start slow, but I'm going to work my way up. And just seeing it visualized on this chart, I'm sorry, I should have had one all filled out, but to see it visualized on this chart, it helps me realize, look, don't get so upset that you can't do this. There's opportunity for improvement. You just need to be a little patient. And the same thing will happen with the weaknesses and all this, but we start to identify what our weaknesses and threats are, and then we can develop plans to help us overcome or at least improve upon those. And then if there's a threat that you absolutely can't deviate, it's just always going to be there, you can either choose to eliminate that threat altogether, or you have to put some preventative measures in place to strengthen it, so at least it can be moved from a threat to a weakness or a strength. Ultimately, the goal is to remove any threats. Does that help, Brenda?
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Christine and Deborah just commented too, same. And Deborah said this is a mindset. I think this is so helpful because like when you're like at least thinking about it and you're being mindful about it, it makes all the difference because it puts things into perspective. And I think sometimes we beat ourselves up when you're not putting it into a perspective. So you could have, beat yourself up over it. You could have been feeling really upset or down, which is very possible. You might still been doing that, but at least you're knowing, okay, what can I do? Like you're fixing opportunities to be able to say, okay, I can do this, or even if you can't exercise, maybe you're being more mindful of your eating, or maybe you're being more mindful of your water. I don't know. So there are things you do have control over. There's a lot we don't have control over, but
there is a lot we don't have control over, but the most part, I think we do have opportunities to at least control things or prevent them from getting any worse than they're already at. So this was a tool that really helped me, again, just kind of give a quick screenshot of all the issues that are happening. So I'd like to know, what is the best learning style for yourself? Remember, I talked about the learning styles, the auditory, the visual, or the tactile, hands-on. Which ways works best for people? We got a lot of people on the hands-on, and so one, that doesn't surprise me, because most of us are going to learn from actually doing something. And when we train ourselves or train in a business, the easiest way that I can explain the best way to train is called tell, show, do. You want to tell what to do. You want to demonstrate it, and then have the person mirror you back. That is the simplest way of training. So the hands-on experience makes absolute sense. For me, I'm more of a visual learner. So anything visual is going to get my attention and attraction. But yeah, this is great because knowing where you're at, you can actually do trainings, education, and specifically look for that so it can be more effective for you. Remember, we want to look for things that's more effective for you. All of these models and things that I'm showing you may not work for you. Some of them may work. Some of them may not. If anything, I'm hoping what people can take from this today is that just because you're given a tool or resource doesn't mean that that's the only thing you have to use, because there's opportunity to share your own life experiences into your own process. And that's what's really important. So assumption number 2, treating your body like a business can bring new insights to your bariatric journey. We definitely talked a lot about this using theories, models, tools, and applications. So let's talk about marketplace capital. So when we talk about businesses, we really have these domains: human capital, information capital, financial capital, mechanical, organizational. They're all parts and components of what operates a successful business. So I train that when I teach at colleges too. But how can we relate that to the bariatric process? So when we talk about humans and our employees, we talk about ourselves as people, or people that we work with or communicate with, our nutritionists, our doctors. Patient education is certainly information capital. Financial, our personal finances, insurances. I think a lot of us forget how much money we actually invest in this process from beginning to end. We just don't think about it. But if you were to add that up over time, it all adds up, from our co-pays to the food we buy. I mean, hey, eating healthy is more expensive, in my opinion, sometimes than eating out. But we got to do it. And again, this is where your nutritionist is really going to be helpful for you, because they know a lot of tricks and trades, certainly support groups. Everyone has opinions on where you're going to get the most pluck for the buck. And but moving on, mechanical capital. We're going to talk about our technological resources, our apps, our any software that you use to track, manage data. And then our organizational capital is just the oversum pre-op and post-op process altogether, the big picture, that whole picture of what's putting everything together. What has been the biggest challenge for you going through this process, either pre or post-op? And you can check more, you can check one, you can check all. What applies to you? Results aren't showing on this one.
Maybe everybody's still deciding.
Maybe.
It looks
well,
like,
see, I always vote too because I want to test it out. So
it looks like we do have somebody that's commenting. Christine said she was agreeing with what you were saying about the food and, you know, the price that we pay and that type of thing. And she said that's why so many people battle with obesity. Deborah says on this biggest challenge, she said consistency. And Leslie says getting or staying motivated. Jamie says lack of applying what I know. So some of them maybe, I know I voted too, but it's not showing up yet. Maybe there's a delay of some sort. But you're welcome to type it into the comment section here, and I can read them off.
Please.
And I'll
here we go.
So,
okay, it just came up.
If anybody's watching on Facebook too, and you don't have, if you're watching on your phone and you don't have access to your camera option to do the QRC, you're welcome to comment there.
And I see now this actually doesn't surprise me. In my experience, the most difficult thing was staying motivated. So now we're going to talk about motivation. Let me hip you guys to some information about that. Fact number one, motivation is an outcome after receiving stimuli. So this actually blew my mind. For years, I'm like, well, who's going to motivate me? Who's going to motivate me? Who's going to motivate me? And I'm like, I got to motivate myself. Motivation is an outcome. If we just sit here waiting for motivation, nothing's going to happen. You need something to happen to you, or you have to be involved in an experience that's going to cause you motivation or to be motivated. So it's an outcome only. We can use it to drive to achieve objectives. It helps us change old habits, cope with challenges, lower stress. It keeps the momentum going. And then, of course, everyone's favorite, the dopamine that comes with the motivation, right? Because dopamine and how we feel on dopamine, which we get when we are motivated, the high levels cause euphoric, energized, high sex drives. These are just examples. Low dopamine, having trouble sleeping, having poor impulse controls. We can become more aggressive because we're irritated. So there is a physical function that's happening in our bodies that help us stay motivated or help us get motivated. You hear this a lot when people are exercising in fitness with the dopamines and the endorphins and things that flood our body. And just from personal experience, and I'm hoping that some other people can agree with me. Please tell me if you don't. But when you exercise in that, don't you feel yourself for doing it? You're kind of energized for several hours throughout the day. You're better focused. So hopefully some people can throw something in the chat box that'll say heck yeah, or yes, I agree with you, Rick, because it's just so great. So motivation really applies in the business app process relative to what's called the intrinsic versus extrinsic motivational theory. So we're using some big complicated words here. So let's kind of define them both. So first, we'll talk about the extrinsic value. What's extrinsically important to us at work is something that is given to you for doing something. So I'm given a raise. because I did such a great job in a year. I get an extra vacation day or a day off because you did some great stuff. Well, that's a reward for something that you did, right? It's something externally given to you for something that you've done. Motivation, the strongest part of motivation is going to come from what's intrinsically valued from us. So this is what touches our soul. This is what our inner value finds rewarding. An example of that is actually a friend of mine just talked to me the other day, and she's really super excited because she's going to be volunteering on a regular basis at a soup kitchen, right? But she's explaining it to me, and she said, I did it. I felt so good after doing it because I gave something back to the community, and it just felt rewarding, and it made me happy to be a person. And with everything that's happened the past couple of years, it just helped me get through some tough struggles that she too was having. And it just goes to show that intrinsic value of helping someone made her feel better about herself, made her feel better about contributing to society, reduced her stress because it was something different that she did, and it just brought some extra added value to her life and her well-being. So why is that important in the bariatric process? Well, one of the things that we can do is we can kind of identify, first we need to identify what's extrinsically value to us and what intrinsically valuable to us is. So I know this was one of the attachments, but think of it like an iceberg. And remember the icebergs from like going in school, or you drop an ice in a glass of water or something like that. The larger portion of the ice is underneath the water, right? We don't usually see that as part of an iceberg. So our intrinsic value is stuff that we usually really don't see, but notice how it's bigger, because that's what needs to be most important to us. Why do you like this job? Why are you exercising? Why are you doing this process? Well, we do it because we want to live longer, because we want to be around to see our grandchildren, because we want to enjoy life instead of hiding from it. We're tired of being in pain all the time. We want to do things with our other friends that we couldn't physically do otherwise. And by successfully going through this journey, it's really going to open up so many new doors and opportunities for you that I know if like anyone's like me, you're almost kicking yourself in the butt for not doing this 10, 20 years ago, right? It's just been a life-altering experience for me. It is by far the best decision I have ever made for myself so far. But so I wanted to provide this model for you because it's a nice way for you to visualize for yourself what is extrinsically valued to and what intrinsically is. Something that's extrinsically would maybe be seems go down on the scale. That's extrinsically. What's intrinsically is maybe how good you feel after working out, or maybe how good you feel because you were able to do an activity with your family that you couldn't normally do. Those are what's So those are what's internally important to you. So maybe think of it that way. What's externally important to you, what's internally important to you. And then we need to think of what demotivates us, because we need to know what these barriers or bottlenecks are, because we want to do what we can to eliminate them. So weighing yourself on the scale every day. So myself, I did it once a week in the beginning. Now I do it maybe once a month. But those are things that would demotivate me, because let's face it, you see your weight go up and down if you do this every single day. And what I learned really quickly is not pay so much attention to the scale figure, but my clothes. Because as the clothes shrunk, I knew I was losing weight and fitting up a little bit. So those were always helping. And I gotta tell you, going from size 56 pants down to 32 is an amazing feeling. And yes, I spoiled myself a lot by buying designer clothing because I've never been able to fit into it before. So I went nuts. And you know, you're going to do things like that to help you feel good. So those are actions that motivated me. But stepping on the scale every day, I think you're going to find is going to frustrate you more than anything. Cheating. So when I mean cheating, I'm specifically talking about nutrition here. And you may cheat, have something sweet for yourself. You may go over your calorie allotment. You know what? It's okay. Don't beat yourself over it. We try not to do it every day, but don't beat yourself over it. And the reason why I want to mention this, because I think this is why I failed the first time, because I ended up cheating because it was difficult for me to adjust to the new calorie adjustment. And I just kind of failed the first attempt when I was going through this. And actually, if I reflect in this moment, I think that's why probably I failed a lot of diets in the past, right? Because you're kind of stuck on this regiment and you only do this and you only do this and you only do this and you only do this. And because that happens, I think for me, that's why I tended to fail a lot of the other diets before I tried in the past. Negative support system is another important thing that we don't think about. And this is how I like to tie it to work, in that toxic workplace or work environment where people are constantly complaining, or people are gossiping about other people, or constantly saying negative things about a supervisor or a fellow colleague, or doing that splitting, or what do they call it? That water cooler talk. And the thing is about toxic work environments and communicating with toxic people is they're just going to reinforce that negativity on you. And think about when you walk into a room, right? When you walk into a room and somebody's really angry, you can almost feel that energy and it just comes on you. Well, it's true. That's actually what's happening. And certainly when they say negative things about you, oh my gosh, I can't believe you gained weight, or that's never going to fit you. You know, you really want to remove yourself from those environments altogether, because it's just going to lower your motivation and we want to increase it. And the only way that we're going to increase it up is to surround yourself with positive reinforcement. That is certainly the best way to do this, is surround yourself with that positive reinforcement and people that are going to encourage you. And I've done coaching before where I've talked with people and they come back, yeah, my sister is just continuously telling me I'm never going to get down to the size I want to be. I'm never going to fit into the clothes that I want to be. And so after discussion and kind of exploring this topic, you know, it's really helping them understand that there could be an underlying reason why your sister's doing that. Maybe there's some jealousy factor or whatever factor. But the point is that if you're going to continuously have that negative talk or those conversations come your way, it could discourage you. It'll certainly demotivate you. But worst of all, it could actually discourage you to the point that you're just going to give up and not want to continue because you're stuck in this slump. So do your best to remove yourself from those situations. I'm curious, what are some things that have demotivated you to either pre-op or post-op? And I shared a few of mine, so I'd like to hear some of yours. Brenda, I'm going to have to whip a few of these slides. Sorry, I get so enthralled in what I'm talking about.
I'm excited. Here. This is great. I have to think here. Maybe it's taking people a minute.
Because I love this one. The fear of the loose skin. Let me tell you this. So I get to the point, especially when exercises. So I don't even walk out of my house now unless I have like the athletic shirts on that are like underneath shirts, because you have to constrict that in. And Brenda had a wonderful speaker a few weeks ago that talked about the plastic surgery process and really made me think if it's something that I still want to do. Mm-hmm. So thank you for having her on, because she's actually convinced me not to go through with it in some ways. But hey, that's me, right? And we all have our own journey. We're all going to do what we need to do. Negative people getting bored with meal options, huge. Finding different ways to. I mean, I don't know how many different ways I learned how to cook a chicken, but love this one. Shaming by your former primary care. Shaming is such a hostile and toxic behavior. It's not effective, and it doesn't help anyone change. If anything, you're making people feel bad. And like, I'm just going to say this to all you shamers out there. It's kind of narcissistic to be shaming toxic relationships. Yes. Brenda, do you want me to kind of wrap this up, or do you want me to keep going?
I guess we're right at 2:00. So I guess if you can like tie in the key points into a 5-minute conversation, something like that.
The one thing I do want to quickly end though, is this, and this is a root cause analysis, and it's called the 5 why. This is the simplest process that you can do if you run into a problem or an issue. And it helped, if you're running a problem, especially on the sweat chart that I showed earlier, you have an opportunity or a threat or something, and you can't figure out why it's happening. This is the easiest way to do it. And you're just asking yourself why 5 different times to really get to the root cause of what's happening. So this is an example, because she had trouble eating consistently throughout the day, why she couldn't get protein, why, and just going step down until we find out, because she keeps forgetting to do it, gets sidetracked. So we kind of got some underlying issues that she wasn't journaling, but this is why it's important to do things like this, because we don't always understand in the moment why something's not working. When we look at the final notes and final things I want people to consider is self-reflection is vitally important. We eat to live. We shouldn't live to eat. Own your truth. If anything that you're going to take away from this today, own your truth. You can fib a little to your nutritionist, doctors, whatever. But if you're not honest with yourself, you're never going to be able to change that particular behavior or issue that's happening. Reinforce positive thinking empowers, be open for change, move to earn rewards, focusing on exercise, and evaluate everything. All of these are really, really important. Certainly, if anyone's interested in talking with me privately, or you have questions about the slides or anything about my presentation, I have my email address down here. Please feel free to pop me an email. Just throw something in the subject line or something in the email itself that you attended this bariatric session through ProCare, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And if you'd be interested in scheduling a one-on-one coaching with me, I will be doing those in a few weeks. So you can pop that in the email. And once that website's up and running, which I hope is soon, then I will certainly pop that info out to you, and you can evaluate if you feel it will be useful at that time. But I guess at this time, I'm wondering if there's any questions. And I'm sorry for throwing all this information. There was a lot of information, but it's so valuable for my process. And I hope some of you will find it valuable in your process too.
Oh, Rick, that was wonderful. I can relate to so many of those different processes just from working in the hospital system and working in administration. You, almost all of those we used throughout different pieces of when we were going through things. So helpful to relate it to this because it gives you, sometimes if you have a process, you can work through something more easily. It's kind of like a tool.
Yeah.
Somebody had asked here, it looks like we have, thank you, Rick. Thank you. This was amazing. This was wonderful. So thank you so much, Rick, for all of that. That was
absolutely.
Check Facebook. I don't see any comments quite yet. If you're on Facebook, feel free to comment there if you have anything to say. I'm also gonna the event that Rick mentioned that was on plastic surgery was with Amber. I'm gonna type it here as I'm. Type it here. It was with Amber Thompson. I don't know why every time I press the return key, it just goes. And I'm going to put our YouTube channel. You can subscribe. It should be added. It should have been added actually already because usually it's a week delay on adding those. But we were gone traveling. And so the girls that I was traveling with that helped me with putting those on were also traveling. So it should be there within the next couple days. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll see as soon as it's posted there. Shouldn't be long at all. But it was great. Rick, I mean, with that one, I mean, I don't know what you got out of it, but Amber kind of told her story about plastic surgery, and she tells the pros about it and the cons about it, and was very just genuine and honest about her process.
Which I loved so much, because I think sometimes when you do attend things like this, I've been in presentations where people tell you what you want to hear and not necessarily what you need to hear. And it was really helpful for me. Speaking of Amber specifically, is how she really the pain and the how do I say this, the post-operative issues that occurred or that can occur. I guess we all just need to kind of take a step back, assess, evaluate, and kind of measure with ourselves. Is this something that you really need to do or something that you want to do for yourself? And but for me at this time, I think I'm happy with myself. And I think that's what's important, right? We all need to be happy and love ourselves. And yeah, so that's my 2 cents with that one.
You know what? That's what it all comes down to, really. I mean, I think that's when we choose to have weight loss surgery, we're doing it, we think, for our health. But when it comes down to it, it's because we want to love ourselves even more and feel more comfortable. And I mean, there's 100 million different reasons, but
right.
When you do that, why, the root cause analysis, I think it does really pan down to, honestly, to really love ourselves. So I'm copying the link here. Our YouTube channel, if somebody had asked about that, and I'm pasting it here, is ProCare, ProCare Health Vitamins and Supplements is the name of our YouTube channel. This program with Rick will also be placed on there. We usually try to get it up there within a week. This will also be on demand until the end of the month. So using the same link that you clicked onto to get this, you'll be able to watch it again. It looks like there's some people here that is asking about attendance. If that's something that you're interested in, you can shoot me a note here and I will make sure and send it to your program. Because I know we have a lot of people, that insurance requirement of needing so many support groups before surgery.
Yeah.
It's just like seeing your dietitian, or some programs like for patients to have so many as well, not just insurance requirements. But Rick, thank you so much. I
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So Rick gave his information. Rick, if you want to type that into the chat too, I'll pass it over to Facebook. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. And I also wanted to share. So we have a sponsor. ProCare Health is our sponsor. I always like just mentioning them, and I'm giving a shout out because truly appreciate if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here all joined together in community. And so what I like to do at the end of these events is just kind of share a little tidbit. And so I am going to be sharing my screen here just for a second, and I'm going to pull up. So here's our YouTube channel. If anybody is interested, I'm going to pull up our a little picture here. So the problem that sometimes people say is maybe you're having some kind of craving. And sometimes that craving can actually be indicative of some kind of deficiency. Could be something in your diet, could be protein, it could be maybe even carbohydrates. If you're like cutting back your carbohydrates, it could be whatever, but it also can be a vitamin. And so if you feel like, vitamins are something that are recommended for bariatric surgery patients lifelong, and ProCare Health can help solve that problem. One of our biggest sellers is this middle one here, this bariatric multivitamin with 45 of iron. That's in a capsule format. We also have it in a chewable. We also have varying degrees of iron. We have one with 18 and we have one iron free. And then if you care for something, besides a capsule or a chewable, we also have a soft chew now that comes in 3 different flavors. So I will post the link here in just a few moments regarding that. And I'm going to stop sharing there. So in closing, I just want to thank everybody. Before I close, though, I'm going to copy that link to our website. It's just basically www.procarenow.com. If you're listening instead of watching. So get that, www.procar.
I forget what it's called, but I like the protein gel.
Oh, Liquicell. Yeah.
Yes.
They're like
that
liquid shots.
It was just different, and when you need something quick in the moment, and I use it as a pre-workout. It was awesome.
Yeah, those things, a lot of people really love those. Some people like to mix them with water or some kind of solution. But I personally, with you, Rick, I like just taking them, taking them by themselves. Just by themselves. It looks like I also have somebody else. Natalie, I gotcha. And ASTI, looks like ASTI. I'm writing down names. I'll make sure and get you guys' attendance switched over. And I'm looking here to see if there's any other comments that I'm missing before we switch off. Okay, I think I got everybody's. So if not, if anybody is tuning into this later and they're wanting to make sure that they get attendance for this, I'm going to type in my email. I keep pressing the return key and it goes it's Hain, HOEHN, my first initial, B as in Brenda, at procarenow.com. You're welcome to send me an email and I can help you with that. So I think that's everything. I just want to say thank you. And Rick, I'll be touching base with you later. Everybody else, take care. Have a wonderful week.
Thanks again for having me. I hope everyone got some value out of this. Thank you.
We certainly did.
Good.
And everybody have a good rest of your week. Take care. Bye, everybody.